We will start the afternoon with my dear colleague, Susanne. She is heading the department of Phaidra and repository management at the University Library of the University of Vienna. And we're doing both since, she started a little bit earlier, since 2007 with Phaidra and working with data management. But beside of working with data management, she also doing some research with children and youth media. And regarding this, both worlds, she tried to connect. And she had an interesting talk where she's talking about how data management and how repository are used in her research field. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Ramon. It's an unusual situation for me now. Yes, I'd like to share my screen. And in this presentation, I would like to briefly discuss the way we have observed data management in a specific field, namely children's and youth literature research, on the one hand. And on the other hand, I would also like to present a few thoughts or other questions concerning a research project that has been going on for many years now. So, as a member of the research platform mediatized Life Worlds, Young People's Narrative Constructions, Connections and Appropriations, called Youth Media Life for short, I was able to observe how many exciting projects are being carrying out that deal with the media consumption of children and young people. Various apps and platforms are examined, interviews are conducted, and children and young people are observed in their everyday lives. Of course, this generates data that needs to be described, stored, shared, and possibly archived in the long term. Few of the younger colleagues have ever heard of data management in their previous training. For many, sustainable handling of data is new. The data either ends up on their own computer, on flash drive, or on hard drives. Many researchers do not know that our computer center, with Ramon, of course, at the University of Vienna offers storage and archiving options, as you can see here, a part of it, you can see here. In addition to shares, we also offer uCloud, the cloud possibility, GitLab, a local version of Phaidra for the long-term archiving, and also other repositories. If you tell them about these offers, most of them are very grateful and also use these possibilities. However, this lack of knowledge is not limited to the University of Vienna, but also seems to exist on other universities. Within the framework of the aforementioned research platform Youth Media Life, Raman Ganguly, Eva Gergely, Daniel Spichtinger, and I conducted a small survey entitled Research Data in the Field of Children's and Youth Media. Sorry, but it's in German. This survey, which was addressed to the Austrian and German societies for research on children's and youth literature, and also included Switzerland, has not yet been published, but I would like to give you a little insight right now. It reached about 150 people and 32 of whom responded. We were not particularly surprised by the responses because they were consistent with our experience in data management consulting. For example, 65% of all respondents do not use a repository to make their publication available. Although 53 stated that the long-term availability of the publication was very important to them. Not surprisingly, most work with texts, but many also work with images. You can see the blue is text, the yellow is image. Mainly their own computer was used to store the data, followed by external hard drives and also flash drives. These options were also mentioned most often for long-term archiving of data, even though almost 40% had already lost data. Many of the respondents had already heard of the FAIR principles, but they were not really familiar with them. It was encouraging to see that only 12% said that their university did not offer any support for data management. This shows that the offer is available, but often not sufficiently known and therefore little used. As one participant said, I think my university actually has this, but that I myself have not yet invested enough time to search, use this helpline, because they have not enough time to do so. So, when asked what support the researchers would like from their university, technical support was mentioned above all. In this survey, however, we also asked whether the data used or produced included data that might be ethically questionable. For example, because it came from a political context or because it was personal data. Almost 1/3 answered this question in the affirmative. Apart from the possibility of keeping this data under lock and key, the possibility of commenting on the data was also mentioned as a possible solution. And this brings me to the second part of my presentation. For some years now, I have been working on a project that deals with children's and youth literature published or republished in Austria between 1933 and 1945, or published by Austrian authors in exile. One of the aims of this work is to document as completely as possible all the works that were aimed at children or young people and to make them accessible in terms of content. So that's a database of all these authors and also of the books. At the same time, the people involved, for example, authors, illustrators, and publishers, are to be described biographically, and in addition, the literary and media scene of the time is to be made visible. From all the information gathered individually, a network of works, persons, institutions, and publishers is to be made visible. In concrete terms, the plan is first to link people and works with each other, but in the future also to link entries about institutions that were involved in the publication process in such a way that these connections to each other become visible. Existing entries on the internet will be linked with new text and images, such as entries in the Handbook of Women Authors of Children's and Young People books, which is of course in Phaidra. It is technically a challenge, but this can be certainly be solved. Here, the legal questions are not so much in the foreground, because the legal situation is usually clear here. Although with pictures, for example, it can sometimes be difficult to find out who owns the rights. With sound recordings or videos, the legal question can be quite confusing. However, it gets really complicated when it comes to ethical issues. This already starts with the naming of territories, institutions, job titles, persons, or objects. These were viewed ideological during the National Socialist era and often named accordingly. If you put images or text in a repository, you have to name them properly. In doing so, the difficulty arises as to which term to choose. It is clear that terms from the National Socialist context must not be taken over without further references. But how does one deal with contextualization? Do the original terms disappear? Do they remain visible with an addition? Of course, the handling of the terms also has an impact on the search results in a repository. The discussion would be analogous to the one that is currently taking place in the context of considerations about decolonizing in libraries and dealing with racist terms. For example, one question that keeps coming up in my mind is how to choose an optimal way of designation of objects that have been archived for a long time in order to remain flexible in the future. Language and also the view of what is politically correct and what is not changes, as we know. But not only the designations have to be considered, but also whether, for example, text from books and journals from that time can be made available. And if so, in what form? On the one hand, one cannot, or rather must not, disseminate quotations with corresponding ideological content without comment. On the other hand, it is also a mistake, in my opinion, to conceal what was expected to children and young people during the National Socialist era. That's a part of a book from this time, showing a lot of people, and you can imagine what it means in this context. To hide this text and images would contribute to distorting history and make any reflection on them impossible. However, this problem does not only exist for works for children and young people, but also for newspapers and magazines from that time. Here, look in Anno, that's the magazine database of the Austrian National Library. It's a very nice tool for searching for old magazines and also newspapers. But for this time, it could be crucial. And there are numerous discussions on how to make the magazines and newspapers available, also in the National Socialism era. But in a way that prevents improper handling, and in a way, of course, to prevent improper handling of them. So it's not an easy discussion, you can imagine. Here, a viable path should be found between great openness, so you can use these magazines, these books, this text, and on the other hand, the closure of the content. Especially at this time, when the funding bodies are demanding that researchers secure their data and make it reusable if possible, it would be appropriate to develop strategies together with researchers and technicians. I know that there are already numerous discussions and publications on this topic. So like this one, that means that National Socialism in a digital way. So I think it was a small insight into a subfield of the humanities. And I think that also these examples show that both researchers and also people from research support services are challenged to find new ways of working together. It's only this field, but also many other fields. And I'm happy to be in contact with so many people from many fields of research to discuss it with them. So thank you for your attention. It was a little bit short, I think, but I hope that you get some insight in this kind of topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanne. It was very interesting in both slides. The first part you mentioned, you show the statistics of how they use data and how they share data or how they preserve data. I think there's a big gap which we should fill. What also you talked with colleagues from different fields, not only from the library or the computer center, also the research service and support. Regarding this, do you see any strategies how to engage more with the people to bring them the idea of data management and data sharing closer to them, so that they want to do this?
Yeah, I think that we should they should learn that these offers exist. And I hope that in future, we are hoping that our data stewards will come at our university and also on other universities. So they are working very close to the researchers, and they could explain them what it means and what kind of possibilities they have. So as you know, Raman, in our survey, that one participant asked what are repositories. So they don't know about repositories. For us, it's normal to talk about this topic, repository, but they don't know anything about it. And I think we could only be successful if we go to the researchers. So as we do now, but in a broader way, so that we reach more of them. To explain what we are doing and what possibilities they have. So maybe also in other words than we do now, because I think you see this poster behind me, Phaidra-Services. So I think it's very complicated to know what does it mean for me. If I'm a researcher and I see this, what does it mean? Do you know what I think? I think we have to be a little bit more clear and a little bit more with the researchers. So they need an explanation. What does it mean? What do you have? What possibilities do I have to share my data, to store them, and so on?
Yes, that's to explain the people what we are doing in this abstract world, to make pictures to the abstract world is essential. There's a question from Andrea.
Yes, it's less a question than a comment I would like to make, because it was so striking during Susanne's wonderful presentation. What I think many times is that librarians are so innovative. I sometimes felt really ashamed for my own trade, the humanities, the historians, because we learned so much from librarians. Everything that our early databases were made of were ideas we collected when we went to the librarians' catalogs and saw, they're doing so many things. They have thousands of books there and you can search them so easily. You do not have to go to a Zettelkasten anymore and then try to find a book. You just click in the computer and say, I'm searching for the latest book of Raman Ganguly et al. And then it suddenly pops up. And that's what we learned from the librarians and the early things like OPAC, KVK, all those big librarian catalogs. And when Susanne had her presentation now, I thought, yeah, it's again from the libraries, from the librarians, there are coming so many innovative ideas. And I think maybe this is one place to once say thank you for all the ideas we got from them. So thanks out there, all the librarians who might listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. It's nice. Thank you very much. But we can only work on these topics with the researchers. It's not possible to do it ourselves, because we need this exchange of thoughts and of requirements. It's very important. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Susanne. Fanny?
Yeah, thank you so much. I was thinking about the content that you're addressing of these children's books, and how problematic and difficult it is to deal with it, and how to address that. So on one hand, it's quite a pity, because it's like during the parallel time, there is a workshop at the Vienna Wiesenthal Institute, at the VWI, on precarious archives, where during the last 2 days, and currently still, it's being discussed how to actually being able to excavate out of the silence, stories of people, or identities, and so on. And so that just made me aware once again how important it is that things are properly, or just contextualized, and there is enough subject headings who added. And at the same time, as you said, it's difficult to add those which are problematic. So I was wondering if there is a way of dealing with this, in between, kind of creating taxonomies which have alternative terms, all of these problematic terms in there, but they are not the ones displayed. But we know that you can, use, if someone searches for them, they would get the proper result. So I was wondering if this is a way of working around this and being able to make those this material more available to people who are actually researching those topics. Thank you. Thank you, Fanny.
I think that there are many ways to deal with this problem, and one of them you just explained. I think it's very important to find also this text, this picture, and so on. But to find means that it should be described in such a way that one term links to another. So you can find some expressions, some terms on the front side. I don't know, like Ostmark or something else in German words. But you should know that it's behind, and it's very important not to lose all these expressions and terms, because then the history is gone. So it's not I think it's not a good way to write a new book, because there is something of racism in it. So it's not, for me, it's not a good way. It's better to explain and to give a context, and to show these materials to young people, so they learn what the history said.